Shabbat Shalom, everyone tuning in. Shabbat Shalom to Andrea and Harvey, who wished me a Shabbat Shalom in the chat. And Shabbat Shalom to our viewers on YouTube that I can't see who you are, but I'm sure you're wonderful people here to celebrate Shabbat with us. We begin our service tonight on page 120 in Mishkan Tefillah by lighting our Shabbat candles. Shabbat Shalom, Juliet. I should have known. Shabbat Shalom, Nancy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, a day of rest, a day of wonder, a day of peace. We welcome in the Sabbath bride with Lecha Dodi on page 138 and 139. We sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and when we reach verse 9, I invite you, if you are able, to rise and face the direction for which the Sabbath enters for you. So typically in a synagogue, we would turn around and face the front doors and sort of imagine the Sabbath bride coming in and coming down the aisle of our sanctuary and joining us. Maybe for you tonight, that's still the front door where the Sabbath bride comes in. Maybe it's a nice open window from which you can see the sunset. Maybe it's still the screen that you're watching me on. Maybe it's your beloved sitting beside you. Wherever you imagine the Sabbath bride to be coming into you, turn that way when we reach verse 9. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmi'anu el hamyuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad V'shemo tiferet v'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hikor habracha Meherosh mikadam nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Hitoreri Kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi Kevod Adonai alayich nigla Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Bohi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uvetzola Toch emunei am segula Bohi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Now we have opened our hearts with our opening nigun and set our intention with our opening reading. We have lit our Shabbat candles and welcomed in the Shabbat bride or queen. And now we are ready to fully segue into our evening service with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 263. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'vyomechon Uv'chayetecho Beit Yisrael Bagala Uv'zman kariv Ve'imeru Amen Yehesh Merabah mevarach Le'alamu ame amaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudesha b'rechu Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Tamiran ve'alma ve'imeru amen. On page 264, you are called to worship with the Baruch Hu. Yai rai 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 yai rai 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 yai rai 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 Yai rai 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 rai. Yai rai 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 rai. Yai rai 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 rai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you, and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai Ma'ariv Aravim. Page 266. In each age, we receive and transmit Torah. At each moment, we are addressed by the world. In each age, we are challenged by our ancient teaching. At each moment, we stand face to face with truth. In each age, we add our wisdom to that which has gone before. At each moment, the knowing heart is filled with wonder. In each age, the children of Torah become its builders and seek to set the world firm on a foundation of truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. On pages 267 and 268, we find the Shema and Ve'ahavta. I invite you to prepare yourself for these words of Torah. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meotecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlachtecha b'derech Uvshachlecha, uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinenecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'hitem kedoshim Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, v'hiyot lachem Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. Page 269. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound. Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart. and there is good enough to exalt the soul. When will redemption come? When we grant for everyone what we claim for ourselves. Long ago we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High, and we learned God's presence redeems time and event. So we celebrate this power that makes for freedom. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nader b'kodesh, nora tehilot tosefele, nora tehilot tosefele. Malechutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam mifnei Moshe ze'eli. Anu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch el ha'ma'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nader b'kodesh. Nora tehilot tosefele, nora tehilot tosefele. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Page 271. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkah, shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. I can see you guys are out of practice from having me lead the service again. I know I was out all of July, but there's no woos in the chat, so I'm very disappointed. We continue with our central portion of our evening prayer on page 273. It continues over the next few pages, and I invite you to prepare yourselves for the Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftachu v'yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Ha'gibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avod B'imachot, Mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hazer U'Moshiach U'Magid, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen, Abraham Mezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Mishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Omidom Melech, Melech Menid Mechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Ata L'Hachayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah Kadosh V'Shemcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yehalelu Chasala, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated if you rose. We continue together on page 278. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may we all live in such a way that this day fulfills its promise. Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Be gracious, Adonai, our God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. Oh, may our worship always be acceptable to you. Fill us with the knowledge that you are near to all who seek you in truth. Let our eyes behold your presence in our midst and in the midst of our people in Zion. Blessed is Adonai, whose presence renews Zion. Baruch Atah Adonai, Machazir Shechinato LeTzion. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature and nurture, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, praise to the source of being. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch Atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Na'eh Lehodot. Page 282. Shalom Rav, Val Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, L'chol hashalom. V'tov beinecha livarech et amcha Yisrael, B'chol eit uv'chol sha'a, Bishlomecha. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam, Tasim leolam. Baruch Atah Adonai, HaMevarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. We take a moment now for silent prayer. You might use the words on pages 283 through 285 or the meditations of your own heart. Yehi leratzon imrefi vehegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzori Adonai tzori V'goali, v'goali. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, Adonai, our rock and redeemer. We turn our thoughts now to those who are in need of healing, and I am going to go get my list. While I do that, put any names in the chat of those for whom you'd like to say a prayer for healing. Our community keeps in our thoughts Mary Kennedy, Rosalind Cantu, Mike Haug, Lori Perry, Nick Joliot, Ariel Batsluva, Rhoda Wessler, Skip, Kathy, and Jeffrey Brace, Rhonda Butler, Ricky Grant, Shoshana Bat Abraham, Minna Dornfeld, Julia Arrighi, Leslie White, Ann Cohen, Charlotte Birch, Anita Ash, Joseph Merrill, Joseph Matter, Daryl Swan, Doris Hudson Trujillo, Susan Smith, Mary Lou Manzelli, Gary Sullivan, Kevin Kossoff, Devin Kennedy, and Herb Leventhal, and Kylie Bean, and the Ruggles family, and Scott Savage, Pat Davis, and all those suffering with breakthrough COVID cases. The Misha Berach is on page 371. We hold in our thoughts all those in need of healing of mind, body, or spirit. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Ki Tavo, in which rules regarding the sacrifice of the first fruits are given, along with rules regarding tithes and Moses' theatrical blessings and curses on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Of the first fruits offerings, Rashi states, not all fruits are subject to the mitzvah of bikurim, that is, first fruits. Only those from the 7 species for which the land of Israel is praised. Here, in our verse, it says the word eretz, land, and there, in Deuteronomy chapter 8, way far ago, it says a land of wheat and barley, vines and figs and pomegranates, a land of oil-producing olives and honey-producing dates. Just as the earlier verse is referring to the 7 species through which Eretz Yisrael is praised, here too the fruits of Eretz is still speaking of those specific fruits for which the land of Israel is praised. However, Maimonides and the Lubavitcher Rebbe agree that the concept of first fruits and similar offerings of the choicest of God should apply in all areas of life. Maimonides writes, when one builds a house of prayer, it should be more beautiful than his dwelling. When one feeds the hungry, he should feed him the best and the sweetest of his table. When one clothes the naked, he should clothe him with the finest of his clothes. Whenever one designates something for a holy purpose, he should sanctify the finest of his possessions. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe adds, I don't always have that much trouble with that word. Anyway, that guy from Lubavitch adds, the rule of the choicest to God applies in all areas of life. If the school day must include both sacred and secular studies, the former should be scheduled for the morning hours when the mind is at its freshest and most receptive. If one's talents are to be divided between 2 occupations, one whose primary function is to pay the bills, and the other which benefits his fellow man, he should devote his keenest abilities to the latter. In devoting the first ripened fruits of his life to God, a person is in effect saying, here lies the focus of my existence. Quantitatively, this may represent but a small part of what I am and have, but the purpose of everything else I do and possess is to enable this percentile of spirit to rise above my matter-clogged life. And I think this is generally how most of us today understand the concepts of sacrifices in general. We obviously are not offering physical items to God anymore. No animals, no meal, and no first fruits inside or outside of Israel. Largely, this is because of the destruction of the temple and the destruction of the sacrificial cult along with it, but also because Judaism as a whole has continued to grow and evolve in the last 2,000 years, both for those in diaspora and those who managed to stay in the Holy Land throughout the years of exile. It strikes me, though, that sometimes we reinterpret impossibilities from the scripture to take on new metaphorical meanings that speak to us deeply in our current lives, like having the best, by giving the best of ourselves to our spiritual and moral endeavors, while other elements may be left out entirely. According to current Jewish scholars and calendarists, I looked that word up, it is a real word, our upcoming year of 5782 will be a Shemitah year. Shemitah refers to the body of agricultural laws that require the land to lay fallow every 7 years, and a rest for our farmlands and beasts of burden. So far, Shemitah has been understood pretty universally as something that only applies in the land of Israel. It was reestablished as an agricultural practice in the 7th year of the modern state of Israel, and has in recent years begun to be seen as a time to connect with environmental concerns. But for nearly 2,000 years, it was almost completely ignored and forgotten as a real practice. Many modern rabbis, including myself, have written and spoken about the beautiful meaning behind Shemitah, the necessity for land to rest and also for crop rotation, for soil regeneration, and the amazingly progressive sentiments behind the Jubilee year. That is, that every 49 years after 7 Shmitot, all debts are forgiven, all slaves are freed, and all land returns to its original owners. In this case, meaning any living descendants of the tribe assigned to those lands by Hashem in the Torah. But it's all been very hypothetical or metaphorical. It's all been about the lessons to be gleaned, no pun intended, but let's pretend it was, gleaned from this ancient, no longer doable practice. And yet, it seems that if the concept of first fruits can be widely expanded beyond just the 7 species of Israel, then Shemitah can also be further developed. I don't necessarily have a clear idea yet of what that should or could look like. As I've said in the past when I've talked about Shemitah, I am deeply concerned with the agricultural monoculture in this country. Everything is corn. It's terrible. And I could imagine that a year of making the land lay fallow could really help with some of that big industrial agro greed. But I recognize that that may not actually be feasible. Still, I can only hope and advocate that someone with more knowledge of environmental impacts and policy-making skills could institute something like Shemitah outside of the land of Israel, something that we could all benefit from. In the meantime, that effort is not quite my first fruit, my best skills and use of resources. So I continue to focus on my own options for better natural eating and recycling, maintaining the larger morals around Shemitah. I also saw today in a rabbinical Facebook group a suggestion that we should also possibly take Shemitah as a time to rest from other resource draining practices, not only land-based, but perhaps like refraining from ordering from Amazon for a year or cutting back on our driving and gas consumption, whatever, something else that puts a lot of money into detrimental places. And then redistributing that money instead to those who in ancient days may have needed to live off the offerings of the fields, to give to the disenfranchised, the widow, the orphan, the stranger. In any case, I hope you as well will consider where your best efforts and first fruits can be put to use and where you can start to think about your Shemitah year for 5782. You can start by joining our reverse Tashlich on September 12th, where we will be joining a nationwide effort to clean up our waterfronts. For us, that means picking up litter in the park around Bull Run Marina, where we do our traditional Tashlich each year as well. May we each give of our best selves, and may we be blessed in return by the strengthened communities we build when we do so. Amen and Shabbat Shalom. We turn now toward our concluding prayers. The Aleinu is on page 586. And I invite you to prepare for this prayer. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gedula leotzer breshit shelo asanu k'bayei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei Malach Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz Vayom hahu u'shemo echad. We turn our thoughts now to those who are no longer with us in body, but remain with us in spirit. As I say the names on my list, please feel free to add any names in the chat that you would like to say a mourner's Kaddish for. Today, this is last week's yahrzeit. I do apologize, I don't have the updated list on me. We are still within for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Patricia Michaels, Joe Davis, Kathleen Schindler, Jamie Bellitz, Neil Savage, Anne O'Neill, Bruce Schechter, Bernard Strassner, Ruth Sherman, Louis Aaron Honig, Jean Sullivan, Carolyn Rubel Magrum, David Nemero, Tom Lombard, Marion Finkel, Steve McGrew, Herbert Levy, Lynn Stephan, Marshall Curtis, Mark Anderson, and all those marking yahrzeits this week. Karen Henderson. We hold in our thoughts all those with no one to say Kaddish for them as well. Mourners and those who wish to join them may rise for the Kaddish on page 598. Debbie Taylor Wright. Thank you. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olalmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei kudusha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru, amen. So now is a good time to grab your challah, grape juice, whatever you're making motzi and kiddush over tonight while I say some announcements. Shabbat Shalom, Carrie. So tomorrow night is Slichot. We will be at the temple around the campfire at 7:30 for our intro to High Holy Day service. It's a sort of mystical, meditative service, not as much as our meditation Shabbats, but a little different than a Havdalah. We will try to stream that to Facebook, but sometimes when we're outside, I just can't guarantee what it's going to look like. Sunday at noon from 12 to 3, anytime in that window, come by for a burger and some lawn games. Come register your kids for religious school or for Gan Teva, early childhood education center, and just schmooze with some other Ner Shalomers for a nice afternoon. Next weekend is the first of the Gregorian month, so Friday night will be a meditation Shabbat with Yogalenu, and Saturday morning will be a Shacharit at the synagogue. If you are staying in town for Labor Day weekend, please do join me at the synagogue next Saturday at 10 a.m. And then, of course, Monday night, the Labor Day evening, is Erev Rosh Hashanah. So please do join us for our High Holy Day services. If you want to join us live, you must register. We unfortunately this year, we hate doing this. We've never been good at this before when people don't buy tickets. But this year we do really have to be strict. If you have not registered in advance, you will be turned away at the door. It's a COVID thing. We need to make sure our numbers are even. And we need to know that the people coming are people who have read our precautions. So please check out our website, register, and join us in person if you are comfortable and safe to do so. For the rest of you, we will still be streaming on YouTube. You can just tune into our YouTube link at the service start time, just as we do on Shabbat. I'm sure someone will also post it to the Facebook when we go live, but it will be the link to YouTube. We won't be able to stream to both places from the equipment in the sanctuary. So that's the same information for the rest of the High Holy Days. So next Monday is Erev Rosh Hashanah. The following day is Rosh Hashanah morning at 2 p.m. We will head to Bull Run Marina that Tuesday for Tashlich. The following weekend is Shabbat Shuvah is also Patriots weekend. So that September 10th, that Friday night, is our Patriot Shabbat. That is also in person. Please also register for that for the same reasons. We will have guests, our honored guests as always, but if you plan to attend and aren't a politician that has been specifically reached out to, that we already heard an RSVP from, please do register for that on the website as well. And then, of course, the following week after that is is Yom Kippur, the 15th and 16th. I think the date. I'm so bad at matching numbers, but it's the Wednesday night and Thursday. Yes, 15th and 16th is Yom Kippur. So we've got a lot happening, a lot coming up. Please join us if you are truly interested in joining Jewish prayer. Otherwise, we don't need your proselytization. Okay. Let's do Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei Avon. I feel like every week, no matter how much I break up the dough into different, like this is only half, and it still surprises me every week how much challah it makes. The other half I made a round one. I'm going to pop it in the freezer and save it for Rosh Hashanah. Our closing song tonight will be Shalom Aleichem on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope to see you soon for all of our holidays. Be safe.